Let me ask you something. What if the Quran isn't just a collection of stories, but a single, intricate cosmic map? A kind of coded blueprint where every single verse, every prophet connects to chart the soul's journey through time. Well, in this explainer, we're diving into a fascinating framework that reads the Quran exactly like that. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the core idea of a coded cosmic map. Then, we'll explore this grand narrative it tells, called the Great Loop of Return. From there, we'll meet the two archetypal sides of time. We'll try to decode what this framework calls the physics of faith. And finally, and this is the big one, we'll see how your own story fits into these verses. Okay, first up, the coded cosmic map. This is the central idea, the thesis that really unlocks this entire way of looking at the text. You know, if you've ever read the Quran, you might have wondered why it seems to jump around so much, right? One moment you're reading about a prophet, the next it's a point of law, then a parable. So this framework starts by asking a really foundational question. Are these verses just scattered, or is every single word a deliberate pixel in a much, much larger interconnected picture? The argument here is that the Quran is a unified, mathematically sealed text where absolutely nothing is random. Every single prophet, every story, every law is a precise data point on a grand cosmic chart. Think of it as a map of the soul's entire journey, from beginning to end. So if it's a map, what story is it telling? What's the journey? Well, it's all built on this fundamental narrative structure called the Great Loop of Return. At its heart, this framework sees all of existence as one big, purposeful cycle. The idea is that humanity was created, placed here on Earth for a very specific test, and is destined to return. So this life, this whole world, it's just the arena for that test. It's a place for the soul to be refined, to be purified. And this isn't just an idea pulled from thin air. It's grounded in verses like this one, which frames our entire existence, both life and death, as a test of our actions. This concept is literally the engine that drives the whole loop, defining our purpose here on Earth. We can actually boil this massive cycle down into three really distinct stages. First, there's creation, where a soul, a nafs, is brought into being. Second, you have the test. This is where that soul, here on Earth, faces this fundamental choice between submission and arrogance. And finally, there's the return, where the soul journeys back to where it came from, its final state, purified or corrupted, all determined by the choices it made. Okay, so if life is a test, you've got to have players, right? This brings us to the next layer of the map, these opposing forces or archetypes that represent the two sides of this cosmic struggle. Check this out. This framework organizes the prophets and their struggles into two symbolic sides. On one hand, you have the day side. This represents the ascent of the spirit, the Ruh. Its champions, like Musa, Isa, and Yahya, stand for submission and faith, and their enemies are forces of pure pride, like Pharaoh. Then you have the night side, which is all about knowledge and power. Its champions, Dawood, Sulaiman, Dhul-Qarnayn, represent wisdom and authority over unseen forces, and they face off against enemies of might and chaos, like Jalut. But here is where it gets really interesting. These two timelines don't just run parallel to each other, they crash into one another. This is where those seemingly scattered stories start to lock into place. The framework suggests this incredible link, that Pharaoh's magical power on the day side actually came from rebellious jinn who had once served Solomon on the night side. So in the story of Musa, these two massive cosmic forces collide, showing you just how deeply interconnected this whole map really is. So we've got a map and we've got the players. But what are the rules of the game? This framework suggests that the map operates on a kind of spiritual physics, a hidden code that's explained through a few key numbers. It all starts with the number 3. In this code, 3 represents the fall. It's that initial moment of pride and disobedience, perfectly symbolized by the story of Adam and Iblis, that kicks off the whole test for the soul. Now, to balance out the fall of 3, the code gives us the number 6. 6 represents knowledge, balance, and correction. And it's no coincidence, the source notes, that the Quran has 114 chapters, which is exactly 19 times 6. It points to knowledge as the book's core corrective principle. So after the fall, and after the chance for correction through knowledge, comes the inevitable result, judgment. This is symbolized by the number 9. It represents that final, decisive split between truth and falsehood,
all based on what the soul chose to do during its test.
And finally, we get to the master key, the number 19. This is presented as the divine seal, a mathematical signature that's woven all through the Quran structure. It's the ultimate guarantor of the entire system, the code that ensures the loop always, always returns to its source. And this all culminates in what you could almost call a formula from the source material, framing the soul's journey in the language of physics. You have energy, our destined orbit. You add entropy, the chaos and panic of the ego. Then you add information, the guidance of the Quran. And what does it lead to? Certainty, the restoration of that spiritual light. Okay, so we've got a cosmic map, we've got these powerful archetypes, a hidden code, but what does any of this have to do with us? With you and me right now? Well, this is where it all comes home, because this framework argues that this map is intensely personal. The whole point is that the stories of Musa facing down Pharaoh or Ibrahim's incredible sacrifice, they aren't just history lessons. They are meant to be mirrors for our own lives. The Quran becomes a living story about you, your choices, your personal struggles with pride and submission, and your own unique journey along this great loop of return.
I love this metaphor from the source material. It says the Quran is both a mirror and a seed. It's a mirror to see and reflect on your current spiritual state, and it's a seed that holds all the potential for you to grow into your absolute highest self.
And that leaves us with one last, big, provocative thought to chew on. If this framework is right, if the entire cosmos is a divinely written story, perfectly sealed and structured, what chapter are you writing with your life?